Hi, it's Sally-Shakti, your visionary writing guide, and welcome to Tarot and Astrology for Visionary Writers from Monday the 10th to Sunday the 16th of July 2023. So this week we have Mars entering Virgo. That's happening today on Monday the 10th. You might feel or notice that your body is speaking to you more loudly with this energy of Mars in Virgo. Mars is our physical energy, our physical body, our physical spark, our physicality and desire, our drive. Virgo helps us to tend to our bodies and our healing and our nourishment and nurturing. Virgo especially has a focus on the digestive tract. So you might find yourself journaling more with the messages of your body, what is arising for you through your physical form that is asking for greater attention and awareness at this time. Also this week, we have Mercury entering Leo, and that's on Tuesday, the 11th of July, tomorrow. So when Mercury enters Leo, we have the planet of communication in the sign of creative self-expression. So it's a very beautiful and supportive energy for us as visionary writers to move towards our own creative self-expression. And maybe again, that's going to come up for you more in your journaling, or maybe that's going to come up for you more in opportunities to share your writing and your creativity in more public spaces and in more public spheres. Maybe Mercury is going to help to give you more clarity around the ways that you want to be expressing yourself creatively. So I feel that this week, with the Sun still in Cancer and Mars coming into Virgo, with Mercury moving into Leo, there's a very strong focus on our bodies and the ways that we express ourselves physically and emotionally and creatively in the world. All of these things might show up for you in a range of different ways, from your very personal and private journaling practice to the ways that you express yourself and share yourself with others more publicly. But what I'm curious to think about as well is how that shows up for us on this path as visionary writers and creatives. I was listening to a great podcast at the weekend where the speaker was talking about writing and speaking and mythology and storytelling as an embodied practice. We know, if we think about it, or if we look into it, we know that storytelling in particular, narrative, and the way that we share and communicate and enter into meaning in the world has a long and vast history that predates what we now know as writing on the page or in other forms. Storytelling has been embodied as a practice for a long, long time. Storytelling, mythology, narrative, meaning making is how we root ourselves into this physical world, into this physical form, how we tell our stories not only through words, but also through our actions and our movements and our bodies and our decisions, through what we do and where we are and how we are being. Our mythology, our narrative, our stories, our ways of making and sharing collective meaning are located both within and outside of our personal physical bodies. There are collective myths that we participate in, which I've spoken about a lot of times as those inherited or shared beliefs that we have perpetuated that form the framework for how we participate in and how we co-create the world. that we experience. Collective myth making is an embodied and a shared practice as much as it is about writing. And how can we, as visionary writers and creatives, embody more of our vision, our truth, our story, our narrative, and our mythology into the writing that we make, the ways we show up, the creativity that we express in the world and share with others? I've spoken many times also about those narrative beliefs and structures that we are here collectively to dissolve and to undo, and that work first begins in our own bodies and in our own stories and in our own structures of belief, and that we then take that alchemy out to share with others. And it really is a path of alchemy, that path of going deep into what feels like discomfort, what is discomfort, what is not right or aligned for us in our truth. But instead of ignoring it, instead of avoiding it, we stay with it and we go into the depth of it, where that real possibility for transformation resides and exists as rebirth, creative rebirth. It's in doing that work, our own internal processing, that we then can share with others, if we choose to, as part of our visionary writing and creative practice that supports us collectively and co-creatively to dissolve the mythologies, the structures, the beliefs, and the narratives that this current world has been built upon, and to create the space for new possibilities to emerge, and perhaps even through our creative process and practice to begin to reweave new forms and new structures for a new earth to emerge. Feels like that's a process and a practice that's really being called into clarity this week. And as we move into next week with the Cancer new moon, setting up what appears to me to be a cardinal grand cross, where we'll have Pluto in the late degrees of Capricorn opposing the sun and the moon in the late degrees of Cancer. And we also have that square to the north and south nodes that are moving into Aries and Libra. This is a deep and powerful time for that alchemical composting work of inner transformation and inner transmutation. In patriarchal terms, creativity has been considered to be a process of sublimation, of transcending the physical body and the desires and the emotions and the injustices of this world, to create some ideal form that is deemed to exist outside of those structures, which of course is false. It's a false ideal, it's a false ideology. Nothing that we are, nothing that we create can exist outside of those forms and structures within which we create them and by which we bring them forth. So for me, visionary writing practice is not in any way a form of sublimation or the word I literally just used a second ago. Transcendence is much more a process of transmutation. And that's the alchemist's path. That's going into the depths. That's being present with the discomfort. That's moving it through our bodies, our emotions, our awareness, our energy field, our psyche, in ways that help us to transform those structures into something new. Often when I'm working poetically, I'm working with the materiality of words and sounds as rhythm and structure, both on the page and in the voice. When I'm working in those forms, I'm working with the material elements of the earth to create those forms and to create space for the possibility for something new to arise. But I'm not trying to ignore or avoid or discount or pretend that those forms don't exist and haven't existed. So in our visionary writing and creative practice this week, I really feel that as Mars is moving into Virgo, drawing attention to our bodies and our health and our nutrition, as Mercury enters into Leo, drawing attention to our creative self-expression and our desire to show up and shine in the world, as the sun is still in the sign of Cancer, shining that bright spotlight on our emotions and our needs, our inner world and our inner child. And as we prepare to move towards this very alchemical deep dive next week with the new moon opposing Pluto, this is where we are in our practice, in our bodies, in our emotions, in the world, working with the structures we've inherited, the beliefs we've carried, the mythologies that we have been handed down. And we are here to alchemize, to compost, and to rework those materials into the possibility for new forms to arise. And when I say that, I also am feeling into a conversation that I had recently with a good friend, because in these videos in the last few weeks or so, I've also been inviting us to claim the value of our practice as visionary writers, to claim our path, to claim our purpose, to value and validate ourselves and our own self-worth, to give ourselves permission to prioritize our writing and creative practice as our work in the world. And as I've been doing that work internally, I was given an opportunity in a conversation with a trusted and beloved friend, in which the conversation felt to me as though I were being told, you can't just sit around writing all day when there's so much other work to be done. And we can transpose that into any given context. That can be the context of family life, a home, all of the work that needs to be done in terms of looking after the family, caring for our home, caring for our own physical bodies, caring for our own physical needs. We can expand that out into the context of our local or wider community, and we can expand that out into the context of our global community. There is always so much more work to be done. And yet, if we truly are claiming the value and the validity of our path and our practice as visionary writers and creatives, What happens when a conversation like that is presented to us is we're gifted the opportunity to see those internal narratives that we have believed and internalized reflected back to us from another. And when that other person is someone who we particularly love and trust, or perhaps even somebody who we particularly fear as an authority figure, it's very easy for that habituated narrative to find its way back into our hearts and into our bodies and into our energy field and into our thought forms. Because let's face it, it's been very comfortable there for our entire lifetime, if not longer. And while I say comfortable, I know also it's extremely uncomfortable. There's extreme discomfort in not following the path of our calling. I speak about it often in terms of when we divert our energy into things that are not our true path, our true soul's highest vision. That's often when we can come to burnout, because we're using up our energy in ways that are not replenishing and restoring and nourishing us also. Yes, there are things that need to be done, but if we spend all of our time doing those other things and neglecting the thing that we are truly here to do, then we come to feel that in our own bodies and in our own emotions and in our own soul. And yet there's a certain amount of comfort in those habituated beliefs living inside us, because they have a little shape, they have a little space that they fit into, and they can fit back in there very easily. So what happens when we're in the process of claiming and reclaiming our path as a visionary writer and creative, of validating the work that we do, our own process of transmutation that feeds our creative process, that supports us to dissolve and dismantle the narratives, the structures, the mythologies that we have inherited, and to create new forms that hold space for new possibilities to arise, that hold space for a new earth to emerge. When we are in the process of validating ourselves in that practice and on that path, and then we receive a reflection back that reminds us of that common sense narrative, that common sense mythology that we've inherited and believed for so long about ourselves. This work not being as important as other things that need to be done. It's really, at that point, really important to remind ourselves of the necessity, the vitality of the work that we are here to do. I come alive at the point of a pen when it touches the page. My soul is energized, engaged, enlivened when I'm writing, when my fingers are weaving spider webs across the keys. My heart is open, alive, receptive, and not only receptive, but also co-creative. I'm in that state. Sometimes people call it flow, that state where I'm open to what is beyond myself, energetically, spiritually, cosmically. And I'm also simultaneously in the process of transforming those new energies, new codes, new messages into forms that can be birthed on this earth, forms that can be received by others in this material dimension, forms that have enough space for active participation and co-creation in gestating a new way of being. it can be easy to knock ourselves off of that path and to forget the importance and the essential value, the vitality in all senses of the work that we're doing as visionary writers and creatives. And at times like this, perhaps it's important to be reminded by others who've walked the path before us, to be reminded by those who have met the same resistances and who have dissolved the same narratives in order to give themselves the permission to value and validate and prioritize their own path as writers. So I want to read it for you, some of the words of Audre Lorde from the aptly titled book, Your Silence Will Not Protect You. Wherever, if you can see that. Your Silence Will Not Protect You, from Silver Press, Collected Essays and Poetry of Audre Lorde. Lorde was a writer, a lesbian, a Black woman. She had a lot of resistance to meet and a lot of opposition on her path. People did not want her to speak. People did not want her to say her truth or to write her truth and to share her vision with others in many ways and for many reasons. And yet she did. And she empowered herself through that process. And her words can empower us and inspire us also on our path as visionary writers and creatives. So these words are from the short essay, Poetry is Not a Luxury. And this is what it made me think of when I was reflecting on those sentiments. You can't just sit there writing all day when there's so many other things to be done. What came to me was writing is not a luxury. And so I was reminded of this essay by Audre Lorde, Poetry is Not a Luxury. And this is relevant for you as a visionary writer and creative, whether you specifically work in the form of poetry or not. Everything that we are doing is poetry. So I'll read a few words. I'll read a few passages from this. The quality of light by which we scrutinize our lives has direct bearing upon the product which we live and upon the changes which we hope to bring about through those lives. It is within this light that we form those ideas by which we pursue our magic and make it realized. This is poetry as illumination, for it is through poetry that we give name to those ideas which are, until the poem, nameless and formless, about to be birthed, but already felt. That distillation of experience from which true poetry springs births thought as dream, births thought as dream, births concept, as feeling births idea, as knowledge births precedes understanding. As we learn to bear the intimacy of scrutiny and to flourish within it, as we learn to use the products of that scrutiny for power within our living, those fears which rule our lives and form our silences begin to lose their control over us. Poetry is not only dream and vision. It is the skeleton architecture of our lives. It lays the foundations for a future of change, a bridge across our fears of what has never been before. If what we need to dream, to move our spirits most deeply and directly towards and through promise, is discounted as a luxury, then we give up the core, the foundation of our power. We give up the future of our worlds. I'm going to read that last passage again. If what we need to dream, to move our spirits most deeply and directly towards and through promise, is discounted as luxury, then we give up the core, the foundation of our power. We give up the future of our worlds. So I've selected and abridged from that essay by Audre Lorde, Poetry is Not a Luxury, but I've chosen parts that really strongly and fully speak to what I've been speaking about here in terms of just exactly how important it is to pursue our path as visionary writers and creatives, because in so doing, we are in the process of visioning and creating and birthing new forms, new possibilities that can then go on to inspire others to create new worlds. I'm going to take a quick look at which tarot card would like to support us on our journey this week. It's the Four of Swords, asking us, Four of Swords, it's got a lamb. It's got a lamb underneath it there. The Four of Swords asking us to rest, asking us to put down the narratives, asking us to take time out of the mental stories. Give time this week to our bodies, our emotions, our hearts, our spirit, our soul, and to let go of the narratives that have shaped and controlled us through fear. So this week, I encourage you in your journaling to make the following 3 inquiries. What does my body need? How do I desire to express myself? And what does visionary writing mean to me? So what does my body need? How do I desire to express myself? And what does visionary writing mean to me? Thank you so much for being here with me today. As always, I love your comments and feedback. It really does help to keep me going. My body's speaking to me quite strongly right now, and I need to complete the video here. So I'm sending you lots of love, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.